All right, AP Lit students, this week we are focusing on a short story by Sandra Cisneros entitled 11. And remember, a short story is a form of fiction that can generally be read in one sitting. Now, some of you guys may have gotten the short story and thought to yourself, what in the world? This is not a short story. But this might be similar to something you may encounter on the AP Lit exam. In fact, this short story was featured in the AP Lit prose fiction essay in 1995. And if you've kind of skimmed it, it's really not difficult to read. It's actually kind of like on a 6th grade reading level. But the overall content is not what we're really focusing on. What we're focusing on this week is characterization. And characterization is when you can assess either a protagonist or some character in a literary piece and determine the qualities about that character that help the reader understand his or her personality. And if you guys haven't done so, it would be really helpful if you actually had the short story in front of you. I've included it in your assignments. If you've picked up the packets, you should also have it in front of you. You should also have a pen or a pencil in your hand, and we're going to annotate this together. So please be sure that you guys are ready to go. All right, so as you can see, and I'm just going to read it from the paper that's in front of me, you can determine a character's trait by paying attention to the following. Their speech, their thoughts and feelings and action. In addition, the speech and thoughts and actions of other characters, some of the author's direct statements, and descriptions of their physical characteristics. And we're going to kind of see a lot of that in this story. And so 11, not the 11 that you're thinking about from Stranger Things, which is kind of what I thought about the first time I looked at this, but obviously didn't make any sense because 11 wasn't around in 1995. But this is actually the story of a protagonist. Her name is Rachel, and she wakes up on her 11th birthday, and she kind of has these thoughts that are kind of running through her mind and an event that occurred that really impacted her. And as you guys read this, I want you guys to kind of put yourself in Rachel's shoes. Have you ever experienced something so embarrassing or so kind of traumatic that it really kind of altered the way that you think? One of your homework assignments this week is to just write a short narrative about an embarrassing moment that occurred. Again, if you guys, don't want to share something way embarrassing, I get that. I'm the only one reading these. But just an embarrassing moment that really kind of impacted your life or really impacted the moment that you were in. And so that's kind of what this story is about. It is filled with similes and hyperbole and repetition, so many literary devices. And we're not going to get to cover all of them, but hopefully you guys are doing some reading on your own. In addition to not only reading the assignment, but remember you guys have a literary devices chart that you guys are responsible for this week, and some comprehension and analysis questions that you are also responsible. Those comprehension and analysis questions are going to be a quiz grade, so please don't forget to do that. But let's go ahead and grab our pen or pencil and jump right in. Okay, so remember, we are focused this week on how does the author convey the protagonist's character, right? How is this person characterized? And we're focusing on Rachel. So one of the first things that we notice when we read this is the first line says, what they don't understand about birthdays and what they will never tell you is that when you're 11, you're also 10, 9, 8, 7, and 6, and 5, and 4, and 3, and 2, and 1. So one of the first things that I noticed about this is kind of interested, who is they, right? So this is told kind of in a first person narrative. The other thing that I want you guys to also focus on is the type of language that's used. There's a lot of contractions, contractions with don't, your, again with the your. So this language is very casual, and we're going to see it's very indicative of a 11-year-old, right? So who is they that she's kind of referring to? And there's a very dramatic sense here. It opens up in very dramatic form when she's saying when you're 11 and you're 10 and you're 9 and you're 8, she lists out all the different ages that you are on your birthday, which kind of interesting. And when you wake up on your 11th birthday, you expect to feel 11. but you don't. You open your eyes and everything's just like yesterday, only it's today. And you don't feel 11 at all. You feel like you're still 10, and you are underneath the year that makes you 11. I don't know if you guys have ever had this feeling, or maybe you had like a big birthday, whether it was 16 or a lot of you are 18 now, and you get asked the question, so do you feel any older? And you kind of, for the most part, like, no, it kind of feels the same way I did yesterday, right? That's the first thing that kind of came to my mind as I've gotten older. Even when I turned 30, people are like, do you feel any different? I'm like, nope, I feel pretty much the same. And so she's really highlighting something that's pretty relatable. I don't know if you guys have ever related to, but I certainly can. So right away, we kind of get the speaker's voice. And what I noticed throughout this piece is that the tone that's set is one that's very young and youthful. Remember, with that kind of casual language that she uses. And then it flat out says, on your 11th birthday. So we know exactly how old she is. It says, you open your eyes and everything's just like yesterday. And it's today. And underneath that year, and you are underneath the year that makes you 11. Like some days you might say something stupid, and that's part of you that's still 10. Or maybe some days you might need to sit on your mama's lap because you're scared. And that's the part of you that's still 5, or that's 5. And maybe one day when you're all grown up, maybe you'll need to cry like if you're 3, and that's okay. That's what I tell mama when she's sad and needs to cry. Maybe she's feeling 3. All right, so let's open up in the second paragraph. We see that she uses the word like, which again is just that very casual language. She's kind of comparing something, but not really. It's more of casual language here. And then she uses the word stupid, which again, we all use that word from time to time. But again, it's more of indicative of her age. Typically, as you grow older, you might not use the word stupid as readily as you did when you're younger. And then she says things like sit on your mama's lap because you're scared. And that's the part of you that's still 5. And then she talks about one day when you're all grown up, maybe you still need to cry. And what kind of jumped out at me about this statement that she makes, it's almost this idea, this naive idea that she has that when she's older, she won't need to cry as much, because she uses the word when you're all grown up, maybe you will need to cry. So again, that's kind of like when I talk to my son. My son thinks that I know everything, or that I never get sad. Why would I be sad? That's a young person's thing, right? A childlike quality. And so those statements like that are, again, very indicative of her age and her youthfulness and almost her naivete. And you can tell that she loves her mom, right? That's what I tell mama when she's sad and needs to cry. Maybe she's feeling 3. So again, she thinks that age has everything to do with your emotions, right? And so if you're feeling like you need to cry, that's something you do when you're a baby, a child, a toddler, right? She's saying 3 specifically because she feels like that's something that only children do. Moving on, because the way you grow old is kind of like an onion, all right? Like an onion, or like the rings inside a tree trunk, or like my little wooden dolls that fit one inside the other, each year inside the next one. That's how being 11-year-old is like. So she uses 3 very specific similes here. And remember, anytime you have a simile, you want to really understand what's being compared to. Because she's saying the way you grow old, so this is growing older, she's comparing it to an onion. Why would she do that? When you open an onion, what is it that you see? See that there are layers, right? When you, if you were to slice a tree, when you look inside of that tree, in that tree trunk, you see the rings of a tree, right? And they're trapped in time. And then if you've ever had those little Russian wooden dolls, we actually have some in my house. And all the large one, you open it up in half, and inside of that is a smaller one. And then inside of that is another one and another one. So you get all the way down to the core, and there's just this tiny little wooden doll. And so she's saying all the ages are trapped inside of you and locked away, like an onion has layers, like a tree has rings, and like a wooden doll has a smaller wooden doll inside of it. That is what it's like. Those ages never go away. And there are moments where we need to kind of access that age again, access that ring or that layer, because we have to deal with something in the moment that maybe our older selves can't deal with like an adult. We have to deal with it like a child. So the use of those three similes, again, is very, very powerful. It's really giving you insight into how she feels about aging. She says, you don't feel 11, not right away. It takes a few days, weeks, even sometimes even months before you say 11 when they ask you. And you don't feel smart 11. Sorry, I'm going to highlight that. Smart 11, not until you're almost 12. That's just the way it is, right? So when she says you don't feel smart 11, the use of the word smart is very interesting, because it almost makes you think she doesn't equate intelligence with youthfulness, right? Intelligence or wisdom is something only older people can have. And so it's almost like until she's 12, she doesn't feel a smart 11. And so now coming in, there's a shift here. It says, only today, I wish I didn't have only 11 years rattling inside of me, like, again, another simile, pennies in a tin Band-Aid box. So it's so interesting that she would use the years. Again, what's being compared? We're talking about years rattling inside of her like pennies in a Band-Aid box. I don't know how many of you guys actually have Band-Aid boxes in your homes. I remember growing up with a tin Band-Aid box, and Band-Aids are something that we again use throughout our whole life, but oftentimes we use them more when we're younger, right? For scraped knees or blisters or something like that, right? So the fact that she's talking about 1 pennies, which again is a little bit innocent in even that, those are rattling inside of her. And if you've put a penny or a coin in any tin box, it's pretty loud, right? So the way, and it's kind of an obnoxious sound. It's not a good sound, right? And so for her to say, I wish I didn't have only 11 years rattling inside of me, right? Today, I wish I was 102 instead of 11. So what she's saying is she wishes she was older than what she really was. She wishes almost like there were more layers, more rings in her, more dolls inside of her. Because again, you're starting to see that she really does equate age with wisdom and power almost like agency, right? I wish I was 102. Okay. And again, 102, is even her use of that specific age, again, is very indicative of her youthfulness. Because if I was 102, I'd have known what to say when Miss Price put the red sweater on my desk. I would have known how to tell her it wasn't mine instead of just sitting there with that look on my face and nothing coming out of my mouth. Okay, so again, when she's talking about this is now the story has shifted, and now there's an event that you're now aware of that's happened that really has had an impact on her life. And even maybe this moment, because remember, she's an 11-year-old talking about her 11-year-old experience. It's not like the narrator is older thinking back on an experience. So you're getting kind of these really raw emotions because it's just like if something happens to you right now and you're asked to talk about it, and it's almost like you're just raw in that moment, right? You're super emotional. You have no perspective that age and sometimes wisdom grants you when you look back on things that have happened to you. And so now we know this has something to do with obviously a teacher and an infamous red sweater on her desk. And so here we go. So the next scene opens up and it says, "Whose is this?" Miss Price says. And she holds the red sweater up in the air for all the class to see. Whose? It's been sitting in the coat room for a month. So you're kind of introduced to Miss Price with this kind of dialogue. Now remember, this is Rachel's perspective, right? So we don't really know the tone in which Miss Price asked this question, right? We're only getting one perspective here. And so, you know, I'm sure all of you guys, if you've had a conversation with your parents and maybe it didn't go well, and then you recount that conversation with a friend or somebody else, and you tend to kind of change the way that your parents speak, right? To make it align more with how you felt, and maybe their tone and the way that they said it wasn't exactly the way that you're acting it out, but it's the way that it made you feel. And so that's kind of what I'm kind of seeing here. I have to question what her tone, Miss Price's tone was, because as we go on, we see it says, "Not mine," says everybody, "not me. It has to belong to somebody," Miss Price keeps saying, "but nobody can remember. It's an ugly sweater with red plastic buttons and a collar and sleeves all stretched out like you could use it for a jump rope." So now she's comparing this red plastic sweater to a jump rope. And so again, this is a really great example of imagery right here. Imagery, because she's describing it as ugly. She uses adjectives like ugly, red, plastic, right? And then stretched out like a jump rope. It's maybe 1,000 years old, and even if it belonged to me, I wouldn't say so. So again, this is a great example of hyperbole. Obviously, she's saying 1,000 years old. That's an exaggerated statement. Maybe because I'm skinny, maybe because she didn't like me. That stupid Sylvia Saldivar says, "I think it belongs to Rachel." All right, so let's look here, because again, we get some kind of insight. First of all, she says, "Maybe because I'm skinny." Why would she say that? So that's kind of a direct characterization. One, because remember, we talk about physical characteristics are also important in understanding an overall character. So she says, maybe she's skinny, maybe because she doesn't like me, that stupid Sylvia. Now, why would she feel the need to point out the fact that she's skinny? So when I read that, it made me think maybe Sylvia is heavier and she feels like, or Rachel feels like Sylvia bullies her or doesn't like her because she's skinny, right? Because Sylvia is heavier and she's skinny, maybe in her mind, she feels like she holds that against her. But there's no real evidence that kind of suggests that Sylvia is this bully. So again, you have to think, is this Rachel's interpretation, perspective, or is Sylvia really kind of her nemesis, right? And Sylvia says, "I think it belongs to Rachel. An ugly sweater like that, all raggedy and old." But Miss Price believes her. Miss Price takes the sweater and puts it right on my desk. But when I open my mouth, nothing comes out. So again, she's using words like ugly, raggedy, old to describe this sweater. And then she says, "But Miss Price believes her." Right? So there's kind of this little bit of a victim mentality that Rachel has. Again, it just kind of seems like she's kind of playing the victim here. Miss Price takes the sweater and puts it right on my desk. But when I open my mouth, nothing comes out. So why would she say nothing comes out? It's almost like she feels completely helpless. Like even if she wanted to say something, she literally, nothing can come out of her mouth. That's not, you're not mine. All right. So these kind of short, incomplete sentences, right? The use of ellipses, which again, there's kind of this pause or information's being left out. That's how she's able to, what happened here? Sorry, guys. That's how she's able to articulate herself, right? That's how the best that she can do is articulate herself by kind of saying these weird, incomplete sentences. Oh. And then she says, I finally say in a little voice, that was maybe me when I was 4. Again, she's accessing that kind of ring or that layer, that age where she felt like she had a little voice. And when you kind of describe as your voice as little, it says a lot, actually. It says that you feel like you have no power, that your voice doesn't carry. And so for her to use that word little is very telling. And it says, of course it's yours, Miss Price says. I remember you wearing it once, because she's older and the teacher, she's right and I'm not. Again, she's talking about being older and having more power and more authority. And not only does she say because she's older and the teacher, she's right and I'm not. Again, very childlike mentality that she has, saying something like that, oh, just because you're older and you're the teacher makes you right. Not mine. Not mine, not mine. She repeats that 3 times. Again, that repetition there is there for a reason. It's basically almost like, think about a child kind of having a tantrum and just screaming, not mine, not mine, not mine, not mine. That's probably what it sounded more like in her mind. But Miss Price is already turning to the page 32 and math problem number 4. I don't know why, but all of a sudden I'm feeling sick inside. Like the part of me that's 3 wants to come out of my eyes. What is she saying here, right? Only I squeeze them shut tight and bite down on my teeth real hard and try to remember today I am 11. 11. Mama is making a cake for me tonight, and when Papa comes home, everybody will sing happy birthday to you. So basically what she's saying, I love the way she says 3 wants to come out of my eyes. It's almost like a little bit of a personification, right? But what she's really talking about is the tears, right, that you're holding back. And I know you've all had that moment where you feel yourself like you're going to cry and like everything is just going to come out of your eyeballs, right? And you just hold tight because you don't want to cry, especially in front of everybody. And then all the way that she copes with it is to think about what's getting ready to take place later on, that she's going to be sung happy birthday, and her mom is going to make her a cake, trying to kind of hold back her real frustration, her real emotions. But when the sick feeling goes away and I open my eyes, the red sweater's still sitting there like a big red mountain. All right. So there's another simile. And again, what's being compared to? We have the red sweater being compared to a mountain. What are the characteristics of a mountain, right? It's tall, it's not movable, right? It's just sitting there in your way, almost like an obstacle, right? I move the red sweater to the corner of my desk with my ruler, which again, what a great image. There's a lot of imagery in this next portion. So imagine her taking a ruler as if the red sweater is going to cause a disease or is germ filled, or she can't even touch the red sweater with her finger because she's so disgusted by it. I move my pencil and books and eraser as far from it as possible. I even move my chair a little to the right. Not mine, not mine, not mine. So again, right before that, we have imagery here, guys, all right? So moving the red sweater, her pencil, her books, the eraser, again, reminding you that she's in a classroom, that she's at her desk. You can almost see it in your mind. And then she says again, not mine, not mine, not mine. Again, recalling that, that repetition. In my head, I'm thinking, how long till lunchtime? Again, this casual language. How long till I can make the red sweater? I'm sorry, how long till I can take the red sweater and throw it over the schoolyard fence, or leave it hanging on a parking meter, or bunch it up into a little ball and toss it in the alley? Again, great use of imagery here. Except when math period ends, Miss Price says loud and in front of everybody, now Rachel, that's enough, because she sees I've shoved the red sweater to the tip corner of my desk, and it's hanging over the edge like a waterfall. Again, similarly. Then she says, but I don't care. Again, you can probably tell that this has caused a disruption, even though she's not outwardly saying that her movement and her disgust by this sweater is causing commotion. But based upon the teacher's response, she probably is causing a little bit of a commotion, right? For her to say, okay, enough with the sweater. But Rachel doesn't recognize that, right? Because again, she's 11. So I want you guys to be thinking about perhaps what does this red this red sweater symbolize? What could it mean? It's not just a red sweater. What is the overall meaning of this red sweater, and why is it causing Rachel such disdain? Rachel, Miss Price says, she says it like she's getting mad. You put that sweater on right now and no more nonsense. But it's not now, Miss Price says. This is when I wish I wasn't 11, because all the years inside of me, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1 are pushing at the back of my eyes. Again, that great imagery that she's saying all of those years. When I put one arm through one sleeve of the sweater that smells like cottage cheese, and then the other arm through the other, and stand there with my arms apart, like if the sweater hurts me, and it does. Why would the sweater hurt her? It's all itchy and full of germs that aren't even mine. All right, so this sweater is not only, it's just causing a lot of pain, not just emotional pain, but she's even saying that it's manifesting itself as physical pain. It's itchy. We all know what that's like when we put on something uncomfortable, right? But she's kind of taking it to the next level, and she's even thinking about the germs, right? So lots of imagery, lots of sensory things here, right? So she's talking about a smelly sweater that smells like cottage cheese. And then talking about how she's standing there with my arms apart, as if the sweater is hurting her. So it's creating a lot of imagery here as well. The other thing that I want you guys to think about as you read this story is the part that Miss Price is playing in all of this, right? She kind of seems like this kind of background figure, but she's really not. I can tell you, I can remember just about every single one of my elementary school teachers. Now, middle school, not so much. High school, a little bit. But for whatever reason, my elementary school teachers are just seared in my brain. I can tell you I had Miss Batts in 3rd grade, and she had, every day she wore these crazy bedazzled shirts that matched the holiday. She was like that typical cliche teacher with the apple on her desk. She had this blonde curly hair, and she was pretty tough, but I remember learning a lot from her. I remember my 2nd grade teacher, Miss Castro, and one day we were cooking chicken noodle soup because we were reading this story, and I was so mad about something that had happened. I wrote her this long letter saying that I wasn't going to eat her chicken noodle soup, and I had a lot to say about it, which got me in a lot of trouble, by the way. I remember Miss Jacks, my 4th grade teacher, who constantly told my grandmother that I talked too much and I was always in trouble, right? So all that to say that there's something impactful about teachers. And I'm sure you guys have all felt this. There are teachers that you're going to remember for the rest of your life. Hopefully more positive ways, but some that just kind of had this negative impact on you. And so Miss Price obviously has had an impact on Rachel, and unfortunately it hasn't really been a good one. And so we have to also remember that teachers are more than just teachers. They are influencers in our life. And so this story, I really feel, captures the heart of what it means to be a teacher, not just to teach academics, but also to invest in the emotional in the emotions of our students. I mean, today's Rachel's birthday, and Miss Price probably should have known that. So whether she did know it and is acting this way is pretty telling of her character. But then the opposite is true. If she didn't know, it's still telling of her character as well, because she should know her student's birthday, right? So I just wanted to kind of pause and reflect on that for a moment as well. And then she said, that's when everything I've been holding in since this morning, since when Miss Price put that sweater on my desk, finally lets go. And all of a sudden, I'm crying in front of everybody. I wish I was invisible, but I'm not. I love when she says that, I wish I was invisible. That's not just sometimes, that's not just indicative of children. Sometimes as we get older, sometimes we just want to be invisible. I'm 11 and it's my birthday today and I'm crying like I'm 3 in front of everybody. Have you guys ever had a moment where you're just crying in front of everybody and you're so embarrassed? I remember this happened to me the other day. It was so embarrassing crying in front of people because I just couldn't hold it in anymore. And so I feel like this moment is super relatable. I put my head down on the desk and bury my face in my stupid clown sweater arms. I love the way she describes it as clown sweater arms. My face all hot and spit coming out of my mouth because I can't stop the little animal noises from coming out of me until there aren't even any more tears left in my eyes. This is really, again, great use of imagery. We're talking about hot spit, and also it's very indicative of a childlike crying. I mean, there are moments where we just let go, right? But as we get older, we can kind of, even when we cry, have a little bit of control of it. But when you're young and you're just fed up and you just had a day like this, you can't even help crying. There's spit flying and probably snot too, right? Pretty gross. And so where she says, there are no more tears left in my eyes. And it's just my body shaking, like when you have the hiccups, and my whole head hurts, like when you drink milk too fast. I love the way she talks about hiccups and drinking milk too fast. Again, that's very childlike. But the worst part is right before the bell rings for lunch. That stupid Phyllis Lopez, who is even dumber than Sylvia Saldivar, says she remembers the red sweater is hers. I take it off right away and give it to her. Only Miss Price pretends like everything's okay. So in this moment, we don't know if Phyllis Lopez really is a bully or if she's mean. Because maybe Phyllis was saying that, oh, she sees her crying and now she's going to say, oh, that sweater is mine. Because maybe Phyllis feels sorry for her or maybe she just didn't really notice that the sweater was hers, right? But even with all that, again, an 11-year-old isn't sitting there analyzing the positive and the negative, right? She only sees the negative, that Phyllis is dumb and even dumber than Sylvia. And then even says that Miss Price, again, this is characterizing Miss Price as somebody who doesn't even care because she's pretending like everything's okay. Today, I'm 11. There's a cake Mama's making for tonight. And when Papa comes home from work, we'll eat it. There'll be candles and presents, and everybody will sing happy birthday to you, Rachel, only it's too late. All right, so now we've kind of come to the end of her school day, and it all culminates in this person admitting that this red sweater isn't hers. And then she kind of comes back to the beginning and talks about remembering that today's her birthday and that all these good things are going to happen. But in her mind, it's too late. Her day has been ruined. I'm 11 today. I'm 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. But I wish I was 102. Again, this takes us back to the beginning of the story where she kind of makes this statement about wishing that she was away, that this day was gone. And now we know why. I wish I was anything but 11 because I want today to be far away already. Far away, like a runaway balloon. Again, a simile. What is it that's being compared to? Her day, the memory of today, she wants it far away, like a balloon that is run away. I'm sure you guys have all had this moment, maybe when you were little, maybe not so much, or you've seen somebody else when a child lets go of this balloon. And I want you to picture it because, again, this is creating a lot of imagery of a balloon just escaping and it going so far up in the sky. And as she says, like a tiny O in the sky, so tiny. So it says like a tiny O in the sky, so tiny, you have to close your eyes to see it. All right. So she wants the memory of today to be gone. She thinks that when she's older, that that this will be a distant kind of memory for her, right? She's wishing that she was as far as you can almost get from 11 in, reasonably, right? The other side, she wants to be 102. And so again, I hope you guys have enjoyed this story. I really feel like a lot of the pieces, the elements to this story are super relatable in our life. I want you guys to make sure that you guys are reading through it yourself. And I want you to kind of, maybe there are things that I've missed on. I want you guys to, again, research the story. I want you guys to read through it as many times as you need. Make sure that you guys are filling out those literary devices as soon as you read it. I know I put it on Wednesdays to do, but make sure that you're doing the literary devices as you're reading the story. It's going to help you guys out a lot. Next week, you guys are going to be answering a prompt that talks about, or that asks you to provide evidence of Rachel's characterization in this story. Again, that's all we're focusing on this week. So make sure that you guys are ready for next week. As always, you guys can email me, message me through Teams. If you have my number, feel free to text me, and I would love to help you guys work through this story. All right, you guys have a great day. I'll talk to you soon.